Raider Nation, what's going on? Today's show presented by Manscaped. And if you want your girl to take down your corn cob the long way, then go on over to manscaped.com. Use code Raiders for 20% off, and you're going to be able to get free shipping on the best male grooming products out there. So coming up here, what we're going to be talking about is Raiders training camp news that happened today. In terms of like a Cliff Notes version is what we're going to be breaking down. We're also going to be looking at some recent Raiders player workouts because the names are, I don't even know if they're real people, if I'm being 100% honest. And we're also going to look at some injury updates around Tyree Wilson and Byron Young. The players that did not practice on Friday, Jacobs obviously is not there, but then also you got your defensive tackles and Byron Young and Farrell Jr. You got your cornerbacks, Duke Shelley, David Long Jr., Brandon Facyson, and then also Tyree Wilson, which is where we are going to go with this show. So the latest report around the Raiders' number 7 overall pick from the 2023 NFL Draft is Wilson is day-to-day. And I was told by a source today that the Raiders are hoping that he can practice soon. Let me just say this right now. Wilson is working extremely hard to get back out onto the field. And I actually think if it was up to Wilson, he would be on the Raiders practice field a lot sooner rather than later. But what this Raiders training staff is doing is very similar to what they did with Jimmy Garoppolo and what they are doing with Garoppolo. They're not going to rush him back. It's not going to happen. Garoppolo right now is on a pitch count. Tyree Wilson will be put on a pitch count. I don't plan on seeing Wilson playing at all in the preseason because they don't want to risk it. They know that he's an incredible player. They know that he's an incredible athlete, and when he's out there onto the field, guess what? He's got a chance to actually make some big-time plays. So as it stands right now, Tyree Wilson is on the NFI list because the injury that he sustained was with Texas Tech back in early November, and it did not happen at Raiders training camp, Raiders practice, nothing during the OTAs. So when a player gets put on the NFI list, it means that the injury didn't happen with the team. When you get put on the PUP list, that means that the injury ended up happening when you were doing something Raiders-related. So I do think it's important to know around Tyree that he is still on the NFI list, and if he is still on that list after the final roster cutdown date, which is August 29th, friendly reminder that this year, the Raiders go from 90, you got to cut your roster down to 53 on August 29th. Last season was a little different. They went 90 to 85, 85 to 80, and then you went 80 all the way down to 53. So it is a little bit different. If Wilson is still essentially has to be put on that list, he's going to miss the first 4 games, which is the Broncos, the Bills, the Steelers, and the Los Angeles Chargers. So if this is maybe the first time you've ever tuned in to the Raiders Report, this is a friendly reminder that we are an interactive YouTube channel, and I want to know what you guys have to say. So will Tyree Wilson be ready for week 1? I want you to type your Y for yes, or I want you to go down in the comment section right now and type your N for no. My answer is yes. I do actually believe that Wilson will be available for the Raiders week 1, but I think that he's going to be on a pitch count. This is an organization that doesn't want to have their number 7 overall pick missing the first week. They don't want to have to put him on the PUP list where he's going to miss the very first 4 games of the year. That's not the idea that they originally had. I get that things can go different ways, but right now, as it stands, I would say that there is a 75% chance that Wilson's going to be available to all of us week 1, and 25% chance that he does end up missing the first 4 games. If he has a setback, that's really unfortunate, but when you're the athlete that Tyree is, and when you're working the way that he is and the Raiders have a plan to not rush you back, I do think that he's going to be ready to go week 1 against the Denver Broncos. To make sure that you guys are always scoring when you get to the red zone, Manscaped is here to hook you up with the performance package. So usually it's $129.99, but if you go to manscaped.com, use code Raiders, you can get it for $103.99. What comes in the performance package? Glad you asked. You get ball toner and ball deodorant, which if it's hot where you're living right now, 2 products that you absolutely need. If you use deodorant underneath your arms and if you spray cologne before you go out, why would you not do the exact same thing with your nutsack? If you got some weird hairs growing around your nose, maybe they're growing around your ears, that's where the Weed Whacker 4.0 steps in. And then the Lawnmower 4.0 can make sure that your body is looking just squeaky clean but most importantly, your main tool is ready to rock and roll. I also have the most comfortable boxers on the market. I recommend Manscaped to any man out there. If you're a woman that's watching the show right now, and you don't got to be honest with me, but I do think you can be honest with that significant other of yours and say, honestly, man, you got to change it up down there a little bit. And here's what we're trying to do. Hook up the entire nation. So go to manscaped.com, code Raiders, 20% off and free shipping. All right, let's now get into the latest around the Raiders' third round pick, number 70 overall from Alabama. It's Byron Young. And just like Tyree Wilson, he is day-to-day. So the Raiders placed Young on the PUP list on July 21st, which the Raiders, their rookies, reported the training camp on July 20th. I don't plan on seeing him August 13th when the Raiders have their very first preseason game against the San Francisco 49ers. I will continue to monitor it. The frustrating / unfortunate part about the Raiders from what I do standpoint is McDaniels and Ziegler, they don't really put out a lot of information on injuries. They never have, never will. Neither did the Patriots. From a fan standpoint of me rooting for the Raiders, like, I like the idea that McDaniels and Ziegler never show their hand because they don't want their opponent to know what to expect. Like, I get it's a preseason game, but the Raiders went 4-0 last season in the preseason, and I'm hoping that they come out motivated yet again and are able to come away with another 3 wins, which we'll be live for, by the way. So hopefully you're tuned in and watching our watch parties here because they're going to be absolutely electric. Make sure you subscribe. All right, if you want to know the difference between NFI and then the PUP list, I do think this is important to know. So with the PUP list, there's active and then non-active. If you're on the active PUP list, which right now is what Byron Young is, players are placed on this list during training camp and count towards a team's 90-man roster. Players can be removed from the list at any time during camp, but can't be placed back on the list. Players on the list as of the final roster cutdowns must be placed on the reserve PUP, released, traded, or counted against the 53-man roster. So that's the active PUP. Here's the reserve PUP list, which is what we essentially don't want for Byron Young. Teams must decide by the 53-man roster cutdown deadline, August 29th this season, whether to place a player on this list. Players placed on this list at the time must miss at least the first 4 games. Unlike in the past, players can be activated immediately after such time has elapsed. So essentially, all I wanted to do there is get into the latest around Byron Young, the latest around Tyree Wilson, because minus Garoppolo, Devontae, and some of the bigger name guys, not saying that Tyree and Byron aren't big name guys, the top people that I get questions about on Twitter, IG at Mitchell Renz 365, are those 2 rookies that we are hoping and counting on to be able to deliver for this Raiders defense. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, the Silver and Black worked out 6 players yesterday, and I take a lot of pride in what I do here. I take a lot of pride in knowing players, the breakdowns, who they are, what they can bring to the team. But the 6 names that the Raiders brought in yesterday, they could work at State Farm. They could work at the Dollar Tree. I don't know where they work. They don't sound like NFL players to me. So if you want to be able to support the show, here are 3 ways to do it. I understand that not every single person can send in a super chat like John Borelli. I get that not every single person can send in a super chat like Tri-Fan. I get that not every single person can send in a super chat like Patrick B. But free ways to support the show: like the video, comment on everything we do, subscribe, and if you are subscribed, share the show and tell people, hey, this guy's halfway decent, tune in and watch. So the 6 players that the Raiders worked out, the first player, and not in any particular order, Davis Cheek. Played quarterback for New Orleans Breakers and the USFL. So they worked out a quarterback. Awesome. Next player that they worked out, Malik Flowers, who had an NCAA record for 7 kickoff return touchdowns in his career. A pretty explosive player overall. We'll see where he ends up fitting if he does end up signing with the Raiders. Bailey Gaither, in his career in college football, 135 catches, over 2,000 yards, and 18 catches. So you got a quarterback, a special teams player, and now you got a wide receiver. Well, then you got Jarrett. I'm not going to pronounce his last name because it sounds like Guantanamo Bay. In his career at quarterback, over 6,000 passing yards, 38 touchdowns, and 32 starts. Justin Marshall, another receiver, spent some time, I believe, with the Atlanta Falcons last season at least. NCAA career, over 100 catches, 10 touchdowns, 1,300 yards. And then I thought he played only on SNL, but Keaton Thompson, 139 grabs and 5 touchdowns. The bottom line is this. I'm not going to sit up here and say I know a lot about those players because, in fact, I don't. And I'm never going to lie to all y'all. But those are the 6 players that the Raiders ended up bringing in for workouts. Coming up next here on the show, training camp news from today. Today was an interesting day from practice in terms of what the Raiders were trying to execute. And early on at practice, Garoppolo was really sharp in the short game. And that's what you're seeing. When the Raiders are running like their screens, you're going to see a lot of screens this year. You're going to see a lot of pre-snap motion. Garoppolo from 10 yards in looks like he's got it down. And I get it. He's working off some rust. It's early in the offseason, all that. He did throw 2 interceptions today. The defense continues to look like it's a pretty damn good defense right now in terms of their tenaciousness. I don't know if that's a word. But Garoppolo, short game, A-OK. Has shown, though, at times that he's not afraid to turn over the football. Another guy who continues to look really good is Tre Tucker. I am really curious to see what he looks like in the regular season. I don't anticipate McDaniels to show a lot during the preseason, but Tucker, drafted at number 100 overall, was involved in the Darren Waller pick. He's going to be a great gadget player. And I laugh a little bit because my guy Graphic today on the show that he did said Cheetah 2.0. He's not Tyreek Hill. Let's just get that thing straight. But the way that the Chiefs, and even the way that the Dolphins use Tyreek with the pre-snap motion, trying to figure out where each guy is, I anticipate the Raiders using that because you might not think Tucker's a great receiver, but he is a very good athlete. And that quick twitchness is going to help out the Raiders a lot this upcoming season. So here's my question to you. Let's play a little bit of a game here. How many touches will Tre Tucker have on offense this upcoming season? I'm not talking about special teams. Touches or catches and carries. Where do you think he ends up ranking at the end of the season with the Raiders? Tre Tucker, touches on offense. The number that I'm going to come across here is 60. I'm going to go with 60 touches for Tre Tucker, and I think that he gets more carries than he does receptions. I just think that the way that the Raiders are really going to try to get him involved in the offense, and 60 might be a lot. Let's go 50. 50 is probably more of an accurate number. 25, somewhere in that number. Carries, receptions for Tre Tucker this upcoming season. The next thing that we're going to be looking at here is more of an update, and Amik Robertson really took advantage of practice today. He just shows that he's just out there battling for his job, which I already knew Amik had that dog in him, but now that he already knows that his job is on the line, he's taking it to another level. With Duke Shelley being out, with Brandon Facyson dealing with an injury, with also David Long Jr. missing practice today, the more and more the coaching staff looks at Amik, they know this. He's going to go out there and he's going to battle. He's going to compete, which is what this coaching staff wants to see. Sam Webb, another good day for him as well, taking advantage of some of these players who weren't out there at practice today. I know Marcus Peters dropped an interception, which obviously stinks. But if I'm a guy like Sam Webb, I'm looking at every opportunity that I could potentially make to try to make this team. And Sam Webb's taking advantage of it. The problem is I don't know if he's going to be able to actually make the roster. Another very good practice today for Isaiah Pola-Mao. I talked about him yesterday. I know the Raiders worked out Ronnie Harrison, but I said I would rather keep Pola-Mao because of his ability to cover. He had another interception today. He continues to show his athletic ability, but he's getting better and better and better. I'm telling you what, sneaky, sneaky guy this upcoming season. And then Trevon Merrick, which I heard that he had a really nice interception, though if it would have went under review, according to a source of mine, he caught the pick, but I don't know if he actually got both of his feet in bound. It's training camp. I'm going to give the nod to Merrick and say that he ended up getting it, even though I wasn't there. Bottom line, though, is there was a lot of concentration around Merrick being able to pick up Patrick Graham's defense. It looks like he's getting it together. And then let's talk about a little bit about Thayer Munford. The latest reports around Munford are he's really pushing for the starting right tackle spot. He was drafted in the 7th round back in 2022 out of Ohio State, and I know that Carmen Brasillo likes him a lot. Munford had some opportunities last season to play a little bit. He got some reps in the preseason. If Munford has a good preseason, he's going to be your starting right tackle, and then they're going to kick Jermaine Illuminor in at right guard. Illuminor has played guard before. When I interviewed him here on the Raiders Report, he literally said that he would tell the Raiders basically to shove it if he was to play right guard. I think he just wanted to be a tackle because he knows that there's more money available in that. But I also know Jermaine is a human being, and he wants the Raiders to win. And if him playing right guard helps the Raiders to win the most, that's what he's going to try to do. So if Munford has a good preseason, your starting offensive line week 1 against the Denver Broncos is going to be Colt Miller at left tackle. Left guard is going to be Dylan Parham, Andre James at center, Jermaine Illuminor at right guard, then Thayer Munford at right tackle. If I missed anything else, I'll do my best to keep you guys up to date on social media. I saw that Robert Spillane had an interception. I saw Jacorian Bennett had an interception today. And overall, this Raiders defense continues to fly all over the field. And the big thing that Graham continuously is preaching is, let's create turnovers. And it sounds like they're creating some turnovers. A few more notes here that I do want to hit on real quick here. Michael Mayer had a solid practice. Brian Hoyer had a solid practice. And then Zamir White caught the football for a touchdown. So they're using Zamir in some red zone opportunities. If I'm Josh Jacobs, I get what he's trying to do, but the more and more looks at this organization's getting with Zamir White and some of these other running backs, Jacobs might have less and less numbers. And if Jacobs is really trying to get paid next season, because that's what he's going to try to do, he needs to get his butt at training camp, because the more these other guys get work, I think it's going to cut into his workload during the regular season.